Have you ever heard a guitar sound like this? How about this? Or this? You're about to see and hear the most weird and extreme examples of how a guitar synthesizer can be used. After each example, I'll go ahead and show you a brief explanation of how I achieve that sound, and along the way, I'll share with you some tips to get the most out of your guitar synthesizer if you're thinking about getting one. I'll also talk about why a lot of people who own guitar synthesizers typically are on the weird or very unique side of things. For this setup here, we've got MIDI coming out of the VG-99. The VG-99 is layered over everything, but we have MIDI out going into the MIDI Solutions through box. Coming out of the MIDI Solutions through box, we've got input going into the Korg R3, input going into the JP8000. We've also got input going into the MIDI patcher coming from that through box, going out to the Roland VG-99, also to the ASM Hydrosynth, and to the DSI Polyevolver. So you've got this layer of 5 different synthesizers plus the VG-99. Now, I know that some of you are saying to yourself, hey, I don't got all those different synthesizers, and I understand. Okay, but you can still do this because you can record those MIDI notes directly into your DAW. And you can get a DAW for free if you don't have one already. And you can use the out-of-the-box instruments inside of your DAW without paying anything extra for software synthesizers if you want to. Now, if you've already got a DAW and you've got several different software synthesizers already, that you have paid for, then you can use those too, of course. So you can trigger from each string a different synthesizer, either hardware or in your DAW. And that's where the full potential of these guitar synthesizers can be realized. So many people use these things as simply like a guitar effects, which is fine. If that's what you want to do, then of course that's all right. But there's just so much more you can do with these things. The way I did this setup is I've got a stock GR-300 patch going out into the Model 12, and then I have the MIDI out going into the DAW and actually recording notes into the DAW. And in the DAW, I'm playing a patch from the software synthesizer Massive. Now, since those notes are recorded into the DAW, I can change them. I can change Massive out for any other software synth that I want, add different effects and everything else, and the sky's the limit. I mean, you can take your creativity pretty much anywhere you want to go. The reason why I say sometimes that it's weird people who use these, like myself, I consider myself to be kind of weird, and let's face it, in the music world where a lot of different things sound the same, weird is good, isn't it? I mean, I think so. So So by saying weird, I don't mean to offend anybody in any way. That's a compliment, okay? That means that you stand out. But yeah, because typically, whenever somebody is interested in having a synthesizer sound in their band, they're going to hire a synthesizer player or, have a person in their studio who actually plays synthesizers and keyboards. So there's not really all that many guitar players out there relative to other types of musicians who are seeking to get a synthesizer sound out of their guitar, when it's just a lot easier to use synthesizers to do that. I think that in some cases there may be some synthesizer players out there that kind of hate on guitar synthesizers, and I can understand that because they don't really do an awesome job of replicating what you can do on a synthesizer. I mean, it's really great whenever you want to expand the tone palette, the sound palette of what you can do on a regular guitar. But if you're comparing it to actual keyboards and synthesizers, they're going to be a lot better, at least in my opinion. So to get those drums, I modified a patch. I made it to where the strings, and this is kind of a tip for you, that the strings that are actually triggering the drums are not the low E, A, D strings, but they're actually the high strings, the three smallest strings on the guitar, because the tracking on those higher pitched strings is actually more accurate, is what I found. I don't really think that those drums can replace a real drummer in a band, but they are kind of fun to mess around with, so I really wanted to show that to you. All right, one important tip I want to share with you is that I have found that if you're the type of guitarist who likes to use palm muting, then it's best if you actually reverse the direction that you install the GK3 pickup or whatever pickup you've got on the guitar, because that keeps the wire out of the way from your palm so that you can do those palm mutes exactly the way you want to. Another tip for you is that whenever you're making patches, it's going to be easier if you make those patches to where the attack is slower. If you have a fast attack, there's an increased chance that you're going to hear some glitches whenever that sound is activated. So most of the sounds that I've chosen today have a slower attack. Now, of course, the VG-99 and the GR-55 and SY-300 are capable of making normal guitar sounds. There's a lot of other videos out there that can show you those kinds of things, but I wanted to show you something that's, different than any other video that I've seen out there. Another tip is that you want to spend quite a bit of time, if necessary, adjusting the sensitivity of the GK3 pickup, which you can do inside the settings of the GR-55 and the VG-99. That sensitivity being adjusted correctly is going to really help whenever you are triggering external sounds and whenever you're triggering the internal sounds, to make sure that the levels are balanced between the different strings. I've been using guitar synthesizers for decades now, starting with 2 analog guitar synthesizers that I bought. The Roland GR-300, which was really awesome, had pretty good tracking of the notes, and then the GR-700, which didn't have very good tracking, but it was still an analog synthesizer. It had digitally controlled oscillators, but an analog sound coming out of it. Then I upgraded to the GR1 later on, and then I got the VG-99, and then later on I got the GR-30. I only had that for a short while before quickly upgrading that to the GR-55 that I have sitting right here, which has been great. And then the most recent addition in my studio is the SY-300. The VG-99 is probably my favorite out of all of them, even though it doesn't really fit into the category of a synthesizer in a lot of ways, because it doesn't use pitch to MIDI conversion to trigger the internal sounds. The strings themselves act as oscillators, and those oscillators are modified within the GR-55. There is some pitch to MIDI going on, but it's just in a different way, and it doesn't apply to every patch. And you can use these devices completely by themselves. You don't have to do these fancy setups like I'm doing, but hey, it's fun. It's fun to expand things and just do so much more than what they were, maybe originally meant to do. Think outside of the box. I mean, that's what creativity is all about. You don't have to be normal, quote unquote normal, like everybody else. You can do your own thing. The sky is the limit. I know that Roland has come out with some newer guitar synthesizers. I haven't tried anything newer than the SY-300. So maybe in a future video, you'll see that I've brought into my studio new synthesizers. Who knows? I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a great day.